Hello, I'm Paul Brand. I'm a political correspondent for ITV News, and just sometimes we all get a bit bored of Brexit. Not the rollercoaster ride in this place, that's the good stuff. Just the way it crowds out all other ideas in politics. In fact, when was the last time you heard anyone around here talk about anything else? Well, in this new series, I'm going to be asking those in politics, and some outside of it, to be acting Prime Minister. What would they do if they were in charge? What laws would they pass? Who would they put in their cabinet? What kind of country would they create? In this first episode, I've been speaking to the Labour MP for Rotherham and former Shadow Equalities Minister, Sarah Champion, to ask what she'd do in Downing Street. So, Sarah Champion, welcome to Acting Prime Minister. We are officially promoting you from this office here in Parliament to Downing Street for the afternoon. Okay. So you walk through that black door, you sit down at your desk. What is the first thing you're going to do? Ring your mum or...?
First thing I'm going to do is get a coffee, take a breath, roll up my sleeves and then start fighting.
Fighting for what then? You can pass any bill you want. What would be the first thing on your list?
I've given this a lot of thought because I'm only there for an afternoon, so I've got to do one thing that's going to make the biggest difference. Yeah. And for most of my time in Parliament, I've been working on violence, preventing violence against women and children, preventing child abuse, preventing sexual exploitation. So the easiest way, I think, to change culture and better protect women is by making buying sex illegal. Where they've done that in other countries around the world, what that does is it changes people's attitudes dramatically. So no longer is it a man's right to have access to a woman's body. It also changes how we view women. So they're not commodities, they're not a sexual creature, they're not something which is accessible if you've got enough money. And I think that would prevent an awful lot of domestic violence, an awful lot of the gender stereotypes, an awful lot of child abuse. So for me, that would be an easy, proven win that would make a big change to this country.
Could you just remind us the way the law works at the moment and how you would then change it?
Yeah, well, at the moment, in most situations, it's not illegal to buy sex and it's not illegal to sell sex. The difference to that is around street prostitution. Yeah. So what's happening is, if you look at the UK, particularly England, we're a magnet for sex trafficking. For sex slaves, and they're coming from all over the world because there's a demand here, because it's easy money. You get an average sex traffic transaction will earn the pimp or the trafficker, whatever you want to call them, 36 grand to bring a woman in. If you're looking at a man for manual labour, it's about 6 or 7 grand. So because it's not an offence here, it's this huge pull factor from around the world. But it's not just that, because of course I want to stop that slavery, but it's how we perceive women in this country. I've done an awful lot of work.
Okay, you're going to have to go and vote. I think the best thing to do is pause it and we'll pick it up.
Fine.
Is that okay? You're back.
Yay!
What were you voting on?
This was on international criminal regulation stuff.
Not something that you're massively excited about?
Well, it's not that I'm not excited about it, it's just that what people don't get is that bills are ridiculously time-consuming, complex, very detailed, and this has just come back from the Lords. And we're getting like a bill a day. So when I've been on bill committees, you're looking at 6 weeks with a couple of weeks lead in just so that you can grasp it. So to be quite honest, when we vote, we have to trust what the front bench is telling us because they're the ones that have done all the research.
Okay, back to your bill.
Yes.
So you want to criminalise paying for sex and
yes.
decriminalise those women who sell their bodies
yes.
for sex. How do you think that would then change the perception of women?
At the moment, if you've got enough money, you can buy access to a woman's body. So that's very clearly saying that that woman is a commodity. What that does to that woman's self-esteem and how it empowers that man is really quite gross. So I went out with a South Yorkshire police team and went to the area where the street prostitutes are working. And they were saying that they quite often pull men over because it is illegal to buy sex off the street. And they speak to the woman who said that she got, £5.
Is that really how little they sometimes get paid to perform sex acts?
Yeah. They'd been haggled down from £20, which is their normal rate. But when they got hold of the man's wallet, he had £200 in cash. So part of the power is by haggling down that woman for a little amount of money as you can. So it's about the degradation. And to be quite blunt about it, that woman's having sex with you or performing a sex act because you're paying her, not because she wants to. So I don't understand why it is that when we look at all other types of slavery, where you are buying the right to get someone to work for you, why is this any different? Why don't people see this as slavery? And the other thing that I've found is, because I've done a lot of work around trying to prevent child abuse, pretty much every prostitute that I've met, that agencies have met, have had child abuse in their past. Mm-hmm. So it's that whole thing of what someone is worth in society and what someone feels that they're able to do. So when you draw a line under that, so in Sweden for 20 years, it's been illegal to pay for sex. When you draw that line under it, it changes culture, it changes attitude, and it changes what people think is acceptable. And that's what we've got to do.
There are some women who've sort of kicked back against this idea and said that it should be their right and their freedom to work in this industry if they want to. So do you think that there are no women who genuinely want to do this? There's always some kind of coercion or financial need to do it?
I can completely accept that in some cases it is a woman who is choosing to be degraded in that way for money. And what my legislation and the legislation they use around the world would do is stop her being criminalised for doing that. Mm-hmm. We would make it no longer a crime to sell sex. So for the women that want to do that, they can do that. But what the legislation would do is it shifts the power to her. Yeah. So at the moment, all the power's with the man, because he knows that he can, beat up the woman, rape the woman, tell the police that, she was offering services, it's not his fault, whereas what this would do is it would shift that power to the woman, so that if that man abuses her and doesn't do the straight transaction that they've agreed to, she can go to the police and get him prosecuted. I want women to be safe, that's all I want.
And as you said earlier, this is an area you've campaigned a lot on as an MP, as well as child grooming. Yep. Partly that's going to be because of circumstance, because you're the MP for Rotherham, where a lot of children, sadly, were abused. And there was that report that came out a couple of years ago saying 1,400 had been through that experience. But is there also something kind of personal here for you? Is there like a personal background to this where you feel this is your mission as an MP?
I think it's because until I started talking to these women, I had been one of those liberally people that would argue, oh, it's a woman's choice, it's a woman's right, if she chooses to do that, then we want her to be safe. When you meet the woman and you know that they've been trafficked into the country, they've been coerced by their husband, their boyfriend, they're addicted to substance, they are literally homeless and flat broke. You just think, that's not a choice. Mm-hmm. That is society failing women. So to just try and make them safe isn't enough. What I want to see is society change the way it treats vulnerable people, and particularly the way it treats women.
Okay. Coming back to being Prime Minister then, you've got to write your first speech.
Yep.
What is the personal anecdote that you would draw and that kind of sums up who Sarah Champion is as Prime Minister, do you think?
I don't know if it could go into... Maybe it could go into a first speech. I never thought that I would be a politician. I definitely never thought I would be an MP, largely because I never saw anyone that looked like me, that came from a comp, that didn't study politics at university, that didn't come from a political family. And actually, I'm pretty good, And I want other people that don't come from your stereotypical background to think, no, I want to make change and I want to represent people. I want to be able to serve my community and for them to know that they can do it and they'll be good at it. That's what I'd want to get across.
Because you did all sorts of other things before you were an MP.
Yeah.
This wasn't necessarily the career you set out on having.
No, I career about. I don't have a career path. No, I mean, I started out working in the arts for 16 years. I then did a swerve and ran a children's hospice for 4.5 years, and then did another swerve and came to this. And that's the other thing. I'm quite interested, and I know that I shouldn't say this, I'm quite interested in 10 years' time what's the next career I'm going to be doing? Because, you know, I just think you can do anything, and I want to do what makes the biggest difference. And I've got to say, being in opposition is pretty tough. I can see if we're in government, I might have a very different perspective, because then you can actually make those changes. Whereas to get changes in opposition, it's a hard slog. It's really tough.
How does being an MP compare to some of the other jobs you had? Do you like it more, or is it your favourite job that you've had? Or
it's really difficult to say. When things are going well and you're making a difference, so whether that's at constituency level where you have someone come to you that is really being let down by, say, the NHS, and you can intervene and get them the treatment and support that they need, that is just the best feeling in the world, because you know without your intervention their situation would have unravelled really, really fast. So that's amazing. When you come in here and you see people deliberately talking out bills that could make a big difference, or putting forward policy when they haven't got the evidence for it that you know is going to really negatively impact on people's lives, oh, it's living hell. It really, I mean, it really, really is. And the thing that I found most challenging is I kind of expect people to be making decisions based on research, but when they're based on ideology, which doesn't stack up with the research, I can't cope with it. It's illogical. I don't like it, but it damages people. That's the thing. If it was just completely in the abstract, then do whatever you want. But when you know it's going to have an impact on people's lives, to just go ahead regardless, I mean, that's just reckless.
And the personal flack you get as an MP as well. I mean, you've spoken quite openly before about the abuse that you've had, the trolling that you've had. Is it worth it?
I mean, I go back to the image of a frog that jumps into a pot of cold water and the heat's gently turned up, and you get to boiling point and you're still sat in there. That's how it feels. So if I knew that I was going to get the level of, well, both scrutiny and abuse that I get on a daily basis, no sane person would get into it. But because it sort of gently starts ratcheting up, and then you get to a point where you think, actually, I'm getting so much hassle that I might as well just go ahead and do what I was going to do anyway, because I can't go backwards from this, because I'm still going to get that backlash, that abuse. So let's just keep on going forward. So it sort of tips you over almost.
Let's move on. What are some of the other tough things about being an MP? You're going to kill me for saying this, but maybe dating sometimes has been quite hard. I mean, can you go on Tinder as an MP? It's really tough, isn't it?
I mean, I think that you should be able to. I mean, we're just people doing a job. But I think, again, it comes back to what you were saying about PC stuff. It's as an MP, you're constantly second guessing about what the fallout's going to be, how people are going to perceive you. You know, if I go on Tinder, is a journalist going to run the story? How is that going to impact on me? And I think that's probably the worst side of being an MP. The reality is challenging, but we get paid to do a job, so, you know, get on with it. But that sort of constant voice in the back of your head saying, how can this be twisted? Is this going to cause offence? Is someone going to photograph me? You know, I mean, just stupid things like, I'll go to Sainsbury's and I'll be wearing scruffy clothes because I've just come out of the garden, I've got no makeup on and my hair's all over the place. And then you think, oh, actually, should I put some makeup on in case someone sees me? And it's that.
I get that feeling all the time too.
Well, yeah, but you're a celebrity. I'm just an MP. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. I've never been called a
celebrity before.
Yeah, but it is
You're
that.
Definitely coming on this podcast again.
And it's that sort of, it's almost like self-policing that goes on, whether it's real or whether it's not. So, yeah, it's tough. But also, and I see sort of colleagues and friends that are MPs, it's really hard maintaining a relationship, particularly when you're in two places. And it's also, being down here in London is so immersive that it's really hard when you go home to explain what's been going on, because it's so fast-paced and it is so detailed and so insular as well, to be quite honest, that I can't see that you're a very good partner. And
your whole personal life really is up for grabs when you're an MP, right? I mean, even your previous marriage came up in the newspapers. That must have been really hard.
It's really hard, and it does make you, you know, I mean, you can't rewrite history, and what you're going to end up with is people who are so sanitised that they've never lived, And, you know, I know one of the reasons, because I was a by-election, and one of the reasons that they really liked me and actually codenamed me Mother Teresa was because I wasn't on Facebook, I didn't have a Twitter account, and I'd had a really boring life.
You didn't have a history.
No, I didn't have a history. So, you know, and they love me for that. Whereas if you now look at whether they're, you know, actors, musicians, politicians who 15 years ago liked, retweeted, said something really dumb, it comes back on them. And so you're going to get to a point where people won't stand if they've had any past at all.
Which for the next generation is unrealistic, really, because they've all been on Facebook, they've all been on Instagram. Someone's going to have sent someone an inappropriate message somewhere as a teenager when they're growing up.
It's going to happen. And when you're, so say when you're 16, drunk and you take a selfie, to then think when I'm 42 and running to be the MP of Cambridge, that's going to come back and haunt you. I mean, it's just bonkers.
Let's get back to you being Prime Minister now.
I like this.
Let's do a quick fire round. Who'd be your dream cabinet appointment, do you think? You can have anyone.
The first person that I want is an existing MP, Paul Flynn. He's a Welsh MP, because when I got here, what people don't understand is that you don't, particularly as a by-election, but any MP, you don't get like a handbook that tells you how to be an MP. So I was floundering, you know, I mean, I hadn't been involved in politics. I mean, I've been out door knocking, but that's not in any way the same. I hadn't been a local councillor. And Paul Flynn has written a book called How to Be a Backbench MP. And that was my absolute, you know, I just sat down and read it from cover to cover. And he just knows his policy and he knows how this place works. And he's kind and he's always looked out for me. So he would be the person that would sort of be the moral compass. Then someone else who might be a real curveball for you, you might not even know him, Cesar Millan. He is well, he calls himself the dog whisperer. He is, I think, illegal immigrant over from Mexico into America. And I was going to say he trains dogs, he trains dog owners. And his sort of big thing is rules, boundaries and limitations. So to have him in your cabinet...
As your chief whip.
Chief whip, keeping everyone in order, you know, discipline would be absolutely fantastic. And I have to say I've learned more about management from him than I ever have from a management book. And then other people, again, I'd actually really like Harriet Harman.
Okay.
Because the things, I've just finished reading her biography. And in the 30 odd years that she's been here, the changes that have happened in this parliament, particularly around women. I mean, just when she came, I think there was like 3%, and now we're at 32%. I mean, and the things that she pushed through have been seismic, both in how people perceive what an MP should be, but also how we work, and then key, the legislation that goes alongside that. So to have someone with that experience who actually went, no, we've tried that, or yeah, that route works, that would be invaluable.
Okay, next question. Which world leader...
This is quickfire questions.
Which world leader do you call first?
Oh, my life.
President of Venezuela?
On
President of America?
on what topic?
You've got to say hello to someone and say, hey, I'm the new PM. Come hang out with me, be my new ally. Who's it going to be?
It wouldn't be a Prime Minister. It would be the Chief Secretary of Hong Kong.
Because you went to Hong Kong recently, didn't you?
Yeah, because I think they're in a tough situation at the moment, but we've got a lot to learn from them about dealing internationally, independently, and making it a real success. So I think I think we have a loyalty to them because of our history, and because, you know, China is being pretty menacing around them at the moment. But I think for how we need to play as a country, looking to somewhere like that would be a really good suggestion.
Okay, interesting. Related question, would you invite President Trump on a state visit?
That's up to the Queen, not up to me.
Oh, that is such a politician's answer. Would you phone President Trump and say hello?
Yeah, I'd be bonkers not to. I mean, partly out of complete curiosity, but also partly because, you know, we are going to need friends. and they are a big trading partner. And historically, whenever we've needed their backup from a defensive point of view, they've always been there. So yeah, you'd be bonkers not to.
You love animals.
I do.
So, and you have many animals.
I do.
But you can only take one into Downing Street.
You can't do that.
I know, but you've got to have a Downing Street pet. So which animal are you going to take?
I would take Millie the donkey. Because she's very wise, she's very kind, and she's got a hell of a kick on her.
You have to squeeze her into the Downing Street
Exactly.
garden, though. Just tell us what other animals you've got.
I've got a whole gang. So I've got 2 dogs, I've got a pet sheep, I've got 2 horses, and I've got Millie.
Quite the menagerie. Where would you go for your holidays during recess so we can get a nice photograph of you on the beach or climbing a mountain? Or
To be quite honest, the best place to be at recess is home. I mean, I love travel. It's what I absolutely live for. I adore it. Largely because I like eating and I like trying out different foods. But so Christmas, I just wanted to be at home because the whole time I'm backwards and forwards to this place, or I'm going abroad for work. And I've got a big mortgage. I pay a lot to live where I live, and I just never get to see it.
Staycation.
Yes.
That'd be popular with the people. Very patriotic. What would you dance to on stage at party conference if you had to do a Theresa May?
Oh, my life. I mean, can I just say that having seen Theresa May, I wouldn't dance on stage.
Do you reckon you're a better dancer than Theresa May?
I'm not even going there.
What about a karaoke song? Are you a karaoke person?
Do you know, I love public speaking. I mean, I will literally speak at anything, and the bigger the audience, the more I love it. But the one thing that genuinely terrifies me, the thought of doing karaoke, I really, I mean, just talking about it now, literally I'm starting to get a tight chest. So
Okay,
I just couldn't do it.
So not going to be a musical
No.
PM. Would you be willing to press the nuclear button?
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate that that's controversial, but that's the job. So you just have to do it.
Do you offer a second referendum on Brexit?
Not a cat and hell's chance. I'm very, very clear on this. Had it been a parliamentary decision that got us to this position, then I would be, doing all that I could to try and get a better solution than we're looking at. However, I strongly believe Parliament has got 650 votes. Rotherham itself has got 63,000 votes, and I do not think that our votes count for any more than anyone else's. And, the country's voted. What are we going to do? Best of 3, best of 5, best of 7? No, I wouldn't support it. I don't think it's democratic.
Lastly, I think you have sort of answered this question already in this podcast, but would you ever actually want to be Prime Minister?
I would love to be Prime Minister because of the changes you could do. And I think obscene hours, obscene pressure, the horror that you'd have to deal with would be worth it because of the changes that you could make.
That's a yes.
That's a yes.
People aren't often honest about that.
Oh, really?
Anyway, listen, Sarah Champion, you have been a fascinating Prime Minister for the afternoon. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you.